Nearly 50% of teachers leave the profession by their fifth year. And that's a crazy number. So like almost 50% of new teachers are going to a different profession by year 5. And that's just not sustainable. That's a huge problem. We know how teacher turnover affects student academic achievement, right? But if not, let me kind of break it down for you. So if teachers are consistently leaving year after year, especially new teachers who are just kind of getting into the profession and they're exiting to do something else, it's really hard for a school to gain momentum. Like, you know what it's like to teach new strategies, to teach new skills, to get all the staff on board, and then all of a sudden teachers are leaving and now you have to reteach and regain. It's like bowling on sand, right? Like if you take a bowling ball and bowl it on sand and get stuck halfway, and you got to run down there and get the ball and push it a little bit more. That's how it is when we're trying to reach these academic goals that we have for students, because we know that all of our goals aren't going to happen in just one year. So sometimes we need year over year growth. I always like to say that when growth is prioritized, mastery is inevitable. As long as we keep growing and moving in the right direction, we'll eventually get there. But we'll really elongate how long it takes to get there if we have to keep replacing teachers along the way. That's why it's so important for us to train and retain our new teachers. We want to make sure that we get them when they're excited, when they're fresh, when they're coming into us and they want to do amazing work here in education. And we get them when they're eager, train them so that we retain them, so that we keep good teachers. But a lot of us don't do this. And the reason why, if I can be honest, the reason why is because it's really hard to wear shoes that you once wore 20 years ago. And I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings, but I'm just being honest. The reason why not enough of us train and retain our new teachers is not because we don't want to. It's simply because we don't know how. Like sometimes we can't necessarily be that person anymore. How do I explain it? Like I said, it's hard to wear the shoes that you wore 20 years ago. Think about shoes that you wore 20 years ago. Some of you probably still try to wear them. You shouldn't, but it's really hard. And what I'm saying is, you're most likely, if you're an administrator listening to this right now, you were a teacher a while ago, and it's hard to channel your first year. Like, think about it. The first year is the worst year for everybody. A lot of frustrations, a lot of pain, a lot of stress. So when you're coming across a first year teacher, you're so far removed from that sometimes it's hard to connect. Sometimes it's hard to give actionable steps to practical strategies, as much as we want to admit, as much as we want to think that we can. We've got to admit that we're removed from that, and it's not necessarily the same, right? So what makes more sense is for us to implement some of the strategies that I'm about to share today. Some of them are taken from my book, 99% Human, 1% Amazing. And literally chapter 15 is all about new teachers. And I wrote it because it's somebody who's closer to being a new teacher. I was a terrible new teacher, but I was able to transition to a 2-time teacher of the year. And I put those tips in there, the things that I wish I knew a couple of years ago when I was a new teacher. And that is, I'm going to link it down in the description below if you want to see it, if you want to access it for somebody, for your staff or something like that, for a new teacher that you might know. But let me talk about some strategies that you can use with your staff to really help these new teachers. And the first thing is I didn't know which one I wanted to start with first. So I'm gonna go with supportive administration. And again, if you're an administrator listening to this, support is probably one of the things that we all hear, but it gets a little vague. It gets a little ambiguous. What do you even mean by support? When you say supportive administration, what does that mean? What does that look like? Well, I always like to say that sometimes we can just ask. Sometimes we get really overwhelmed with trying to figure things out when we can just ask. Literally ask the question, what does support look like to you? Like, ask those new teachers, what does support look like to you? Because for some teachers are going to say that support looks like you coming in my classroom and being in presence. And some is going to say you trusting me and not micromanaging me, right? So it looks different for everybody. Every teacher that you have, new, old, veteran, licensed, unlicensed, every teacher that you have is going to have a different, well, most teachers are going to have a different definition of what support looks like. They're all individuals. They all have unique gifts and talents. So ask them each individually, what does support look like for you? And then you as the administrator, you decide how to show up and how to be supportive for that person. Because supportive administration is one of the top 10 reasons or why people stay, which then means that unsupportive administration is one of the top 10 reasons why people leave. right? So you want to make sure that you are a supportive administrator, but not supportive based off of what you think support looks like, but support based off of what they need. So ask them what support they need. The second one, now I'm gonna go. This is what I was gonna start with, but I decided to put this one second. Professional development. And I didn't want to start with this because I didn't want you to tune out of the video. So if you're still watching, thank you. But I didn't want you to be like, oh, he's just gonna talk about PD. No, what I'm saying is professional development, but I will say to outsource it or make it not you. Not because you're not capable, right? But because you have so many other things to do already. And there are so many other people who are proficient in the area of training and retaining new teachers. Again, not saying that you can't. I don't even know you. I'm not saying that you can't. I'm just saying that there's others that can as well. And when I say professional development, I mean targeted and very specific professional development. Maybe it's inside the building, maybe it's outside of the building, but it is really geared towards exactly what those new teachers need. One of the biggest complaints from teachers is that professional development is not catered to their needs. That we're just going through professional development because it's just part of the act. We have to get a certain amount of hours. We have to get a certain amount of credits. We have to do that. Like, that's what people are complaining about. Like, it's not tailored to me. It's not exactly what I need. Make sure that we're finding professional development that our teachers need. And guess what? Ask. Ask them what support they need. Ask them what support they need from you. Ask them what professional development they need. But also, as you're doing your observations and as you're looking at classrooms, you can kind of identify what the action steps are going to be. And again, sometimes it's hard for you to actually teach it. If you're anything like me, you're going to look and sometimes when something is so far away, oh, let me see. How can I say this? Okay, like for me, cutting hair. I used to be a barber, so I've been cutting hair since I was 12 years old. And now when I cut hair, it just comes second nature to me. But when somebody's just starting out, when they're cutting hair, when I'm trying to describe it to them, sometimes it's hard for me as a 20-year vet to describe to somebody who's picking up the clippers for the first time exactly what to do, right? So as I'm looking at them and I say, just hold the clippers and make the line straight, sometimes the angle is off, their hand angling is weird. And I'm like, why can't you just hold this right? Because it's so innate to me because I've been doing it for 20 years. What am I saying? Okay, I'm not saying that you can't do the professional development. What I am saying is there are other people who are closer to where your teachers currently are that can give them actionable steps in a way that is more palatable, in a way that's more able to understand, in a way that they'd be able to receive it and they'd be able to connect with because it's a little bit more relevant because they're closer to the situation or because they do this full time or always. Right? So when we're looking at professional development, again, it doesn't have to be you, but find people. It could even be people in the building, but that can connect with these teachers, these new teachers, to help them with these new strategies and the stresses that they're going to. Somebody who's a little bit closer to the situation. They always say that you're in the perfect position to help the person that you were 2 years ago. So I like to think about that to mean that it's hard for you to then help somebody who you were more than 2 years ago. For a lot of you administrators, it's probably easy for you to help a brand new administrator or somebody who was in your shoes 2 years ago. It's a little bit harder for us to help those who were a lot longer than that ago. You know what I'm trying to say? More than 2 years ago. So go ahead and make sure you check that out. The next thing I want to say is the third one is going to be mentorship programs. Okay? Mentorship programs are huge. And here's what I like to say about mentorship programs. Everybody needs to have those people in the building that they can feel supported with. And one of the flaws of the current mentorship programs that we see is that it randomly assigns you to a mentor and that person, again, just going through the motions, just logging hours. I have to connect with my mentee once or twice a week. I have to make sure I check off this box. But there may not be like a natural or an actual connection. Here's a way that I would like to create mentorship programs. And it's actually a biblical principle. I got it from the story of the paralytic, where his 4 friends carried him to Jesus, right? And the 4 friends surrounded him, carried the paralytic. If you're familiar with the story, they sawed the roof and they lowered him through the roof down to Jesus, and Jesus healed the paralytic and he got up and walked. But the part that stuck with me was the fact that the paralytic couldn't move. Right? So he couldn't get to his desired outcome on his own. He had 4 friends that surrounded him. Now to surround, I'm thinking surround, in order for them to carry a paralyzed man, that means they had to have one in the front, one in the back, one on the right side, one on the left side. That's how they had to surround in order to lift up the mat that he was on, to carry him to where Jesus was, right? So when I'm thinking about that story, I'm thinking about support and friendship and surrounding people means that you got to have at least 4 people on either side. So a good mentorship person or good mentorship program would be to have the new teacher in the middle, as in the position of the paralytic, and then have somebody in front, to the right, to the left, and behind them to surround them to carry them to the desired outcome. The person in front of them will be the guide. I mentioned this earlier. The guide is somebody who is just 2 years removed from that situation. They are where this person once was. No, they were where this person once was, and they are where this person wants to be. So the guide is just 2 years removed. They once were where you are, but they now are where you want to be. That's the guide. That's the person that's in front of you. Link a new teacher with a guide. Then on the right side, that right-hand person, that's a peer. That's somebody going through it with you, right? That's somebody that's going through the situations they're on the front lines. They're dealing with the same issues, sometimes the same students, the same stressors. Have somebody going through it with them that they can vent to, that they can talk about things with, that they can lesson plan with, right? That person that's going to be there side by side with them, that's going to understand exactly what they're going through. The person behind them, that's going to be the person that they can fall back on. Right? That's going to be when I'm going through it, when it's a tough time, when it's hard for me, when I don't think I can make this anymore, when I feel like giving up. The person behind them is the person that gives them that push, that encouragement, that says, you got this, you can keep going. Link them with that person in the building as well. So that's 3. And the last one is the person on the left side. That's the accountability partner. That's the person that's looking out for your blind side. They're on your left side. The person that's checking out to make sure that you know that their grades are due this weekend. Right? That you make sure that objective is on the board, if you still require teachers to have objectives on the board, right? Hey, remember, such and such is coming up. So the accountability partner is a person that's going to be iron sharpening iron, but holding them accountable to their high expectations that they have for themselves. So a good mentorship program is not just connecting them with one other teacher in the building, but surrounding them with 4 very intentional people that can help carry them to their desired destination. So that's what I would say would be super, super, super critical. And I need you to understand that it is definitely possible for you to have this type of impact on new teachers. And don't have to think that you have to do this all by yourself. Strong is overrated sometimes. You already have, as an administrator, so much on your plate. Right? You already have the school on your back. You don't necessarily need to shoulder the weight of training and retaining each and every new teacher. Sometimes you can outsource this. So professional development, maybe that's somebody else. Right? Supportive administrator, that's on you. You got to do that one. But mentorship program, connect them with 4 other people in the building. Right? It doesn't have to only be on you. But the whole school community will be stronger because of the impact and because of the work, because of the emphasis that we put on our new teachers. So I really hope that was helpful. And what I want you to do is comment down below. What is one move that you can make today that's going to positively impact the new teachers that are in your building? I really want to know that. Comment that below. Let's have this conversation in the comment section. In the next video, we're going to talk about some innovative strategies that are going to bridge these learning gaps. But in the meantime, I'm going to link a video here if you're interested in learning more about the book, 99% Human, 1% Amazing, which is now available and is really going to help empower your teachers to make impactful change. I'll see you in the next one.